Picture this. It's an ordinary night in America. You're tucked away in bed, the soft glow of your phone fading as you fall asleep, unaware that the world is about to be turned upside down. Then you wake up to the blaring sound of your phone, an emergency alert. World War III has begun. It starts with global tensions reaching a boiling point. The South China Sea is a hotspot, with China expanding its military presence, while the US conducts freedom of navigation operations. Cyber warfare between Russia and the US is escalating, with accusations of hacking and election manipulation. North Korea tests ballistic missiles despite sanctions, while Iran expands its nuclear capabilities. The US military presence in the Middle East causes friction, and Russian forces operate in Syria, Iraq, and Libya. Direct clashes between US and Russian troops seem inevitable. America's allies in Europe are watching anxiously, with NATO scrambling to counter Russian aggression. The threat of conflict is real and creeping closer by the day. No one expected it to happen so fast. One moment the world is at peace, the next the unthinkable happens. A missile is launched in the South China Sea, and no one knows if it was intentional or accidental. The US retaliates with airstrikes, and World War III begins. The world is now hurtling toward disaster. Phones buzz with emergency alerts. The message is short but devastating. World War III has begun, but it's already too late. It begins in the dead of night, a time when the world should be at rest. But this night, instead of silence, the sky erupts in a blinding flash. The first nuclear missile has been launched. The rules of engagement are gone. The world is now in free fall. Within seconds, a massive mushroom cloud blooms on the horizon. Entire cities, military bases, civilian lives, and infrastructure are wiped off the map. But this is just the beginning. If you're finding this video informative, please press the like button. Your engagement helps us make better videos. There is a sequence of strikes and counterstrikes. The United States is quick to respond. Military command orders counterstrikes almost immediately, targeting major installations in Russia and China. Missiles roar into the sky from hidden silos, submarines, and aircraft carriers. These counterstrikes aim to cripple the enemy's nuclear capabilities, but in hours, precision gives way to chaos. Civilian populations in major cities become collateral damage. Millions of lives hang in the balance as superpowers unleash their nuclear arsenals. Mass destruction unfolds. Cities are incinerated in seconds, buildings crumble as shockwaves blast outward. The heat melts steel and turns sand into glass. Fallout is quick and deadly. Radioactive ash contaminates everything. Food, water, air, nothing is safe. Hospitals are overwhelmed. Chaos reigns as people fight for survival. Nuclear weapons lead to total annihilation. After the fire comes the fallout. Survivors face a new terror. The air is thick with radioactive dust. Cities are now ghost towns, shrouded in a toxic haze. With supply chains obliterated, food and water become scarce. Government attempts to distribute resources, but it's not enough. Riots break out as desperate citizens fight over dwindling supplies. The streets are filled with the sick and dying. The world is now a barren, desolate place. Cities that once stood tall are now piles of rubble. The global economy is in free fall. Survivors navigate a landscape that no longer resembles the world they once knew. Every breath is a risk, every step a gamble. Survival in a post-nuclear world is a grim, brutal affair. The infrastructure we once took for granted is gone. The true cost of nuclear war is the slow, agonizing death of everything we rely on. The world we knew is gone, and what remains is a shadow of what it once was. As the fires burn out and the smoke clears, the true consequences of nuclear war set in. The sun, once the source of life, is now barely visible through the thick layer of soot. Without sunlight, global temperatures drop, causing crops to wither and die. The world is plunged into a nuclear winter. What was once vibrant is now a frozen wasteland as the planet's cycles grind to a halt. If you're enjoying this video, hit the notification bell and subscribe to be notified of our next release. Ecosystems collapse as plants fail to photosynthesize, leaving herbivores and predators to starve. The world's oceans cool, disrupting marine life. Fish populations die off, depleting food supplies. Humans too are not immune to the cold. Cities are now frozen, with icicles hanging from skyscrapers. Snow falls where it shouldn't, as weather patterns shift dramatically. Without sunlight, the world's food supply dwindles to nothing. Governments attempt to ration what little food is left, Global famine sets in with millions starving. Desperate communities resort to foraging, but the fallout has contaminated the earth. The onset of nuclear winter is the final nail in the coffin for humanity. In the wake of nuclear devastation, the world map becomes meaningless. Once powerful nations have crumbled into chaos, what remains is a primal world where only the strong survive. As the fallout settles and the survivors crawl out of their bunkers, the global political landscape is unrecognizable. The United Nations, NATO, and other international organizations are either powerless or non-existent. Superpowers like the United States, Russia, and China, once at the forefront of this global catastrophe, are now shadows of their former selves. The leaders of these nations have either been killed in the chaos, fled to secure bunkers, or lost control of their military forces. In the United States, the federal government is no longer functioning. The president and key officials, presumed dead or missing, leave a leadership vacuum that no one can fill. The armed forces, once the backbone of American power, have fractured into rogue factions, each controlled by local commanders who have taken matters into their own hands. With Washington, D.C. in ruins, power shifts to regional militias and warlords. The country is no longer a united state, but a patchwork of territories ruled by whoever has the most guns and supplies. Across Europe, a similar scene unfolds. The European Union, already fragile before the war, has been obliterated. Countries like France, Germany, and the UK are no longer united by a common cause. Instead, cities are reduced to fortresses where the wealthy and powerful hoard whatever resources they can find, while the rest of the population struggles to survive in a lawless landscape. Ethnic and political divisions flare up, and former allies now turn against each other in a desperate struggle for control. Without governments, there is no diplomacy, only survival. Gold, food, and weapons are the only currencies that matter. People now see themselves as members of local tribes or factions. In this power vacuum, local warlords emerge as rulers. These warlords are military commanders or former criminals who seize power. Their rule is brutal and absolute. They control territory with an iron fist, enforcing loyalty through fear. In the absence of law, they become the new government. Would you survive in this post-apocalyptic world? Comment below if you would just survive or thrive in this wasteland. In this new world, power is no longer determined by military might alone. It's about resources. Water, food, and energy are the new currency of power. Whoever controls these resources controls the future. The scarcity of resources leads to a new kind of warfare. Instead of massive armies clashing on the battlefield, smaller, more mobile militias engage in guerrilla tactics, raiding neighboring territories for supplies. Warlords and militias dominate the landscape, but new systems of governance emerge. These systems aren't democratic. Power is centralized and dissent is eliminated. Leaders rule with fear and intimidation. But not all hope is lost. Some communities rebuild, creating self-sufficient societies. They cooperate to grow food, purify water, and rebuild. These pockets of hope show what the world could become. If you would like to see more alternate history and conspiracy videos, click on the videos on your screen. The future is not set in stone. For us to truly understand all of the possibilities of our future, we must examine all paths that can be taken. Will we eventually escalate to nuclear annihilation, or will we be able to avoid this grim future?